ever wondered how your nonverbal cues might be misinterpreted by society, especially if you have ADHD? I wanted to recap my discussion with Blake Eastman this week, and he's a behavioral expert, and he explained the hidden language of ADHD, and that's what society judges us by, the societal norms that is judged by these nonverbal cues, and then understanding how these dynamics can transform your interactions and relationships. By understanding our nonverbal cues, we can have a better understanding on how people react. And the thing is, our brain processes things differently, and as Blake said, that of course we're going to have different patterns of behavior because our brains are just different and they work differently. And like ADHD entrepreneurs, we process information differently, and it really creates distinct nonverbal behaviors. And for example, a couple he gave were inconsistent eye contact or fidgeting. And with a lot of this, others misinterpret this as inappropriate or distracting, right? Remember, ADHD is one of the few mental health conditions that is diagnosed because it bothers other people, or it's distracting to other people. And we really, what I liked what he said about societal norms and scientific facts. And he said there's a distinction between the two, even though there's a lot of people that says, hey, society, science-based facts that we have, these behaviors are common. But it's actually more about social norms, and that's what they're looking for in their research. And that's one of the things I really respect about Blake, is how he's actually chasing behavioral patterns, reading behavioral patterns at a scientific level by removing ourselves or the data or the interpretation from current societal norms, okay? And I think there's a really good distinction we got to make between the two, is that societal norms is not scientific basis for these norms, as he says, and the perceptions are often based on unscientific standards. So a lot of this has to do with rules of engagement in that community that you're in, or whatever part you're in. And we've got to be cognizant that these aren't scientific facts. These are just societal norms that have decided how our behaviors are supposed to be. And then that's why we are seen as oddballs or renegades or outcasts, because we don't behave the same way. And because of that, we behave the way we behave because that's who we are. That's how our brain's wired. But that's where a lot of people have that challenge, is there's no context behind the behavior. And that's key. And that was one of my key defining moments when I got my diagnosis of ADHD, and understanding how certain things that was frustrating to others was being misunderstood. And that was things that was being misunderstood because no one had the context. That's not how a quote-unquote normal behavior is. That's not how we're supposed to do it. That's not how the schools are teaching us to do it. That's not how the books are telling us how to do it, run a business, run communities, or whatever, okay? But by learning the context for my behaviors, that deviated from the norm, really helped me understand me and help avoid misinterpretation, and which made communication smoother, but I was able to explain it better. Like about my working memory. I don't have ADHD, I can remember shit. It's just my working memory is not that good. Can you please send me an email so you can remind me? Or the fact, like my hat at the hutch, everything I need for the next day goes in the hat in my hutch if it's not part of my regular routine. If you cover that hat, it's gone. So once we explain that in those contexts, it makes a lot more sense on our behavior. And what my experience is, once I explain it to people go, okay, that makes sense. Now it gets to the point where they're starting to recognize my behaviors as a good thing. Like when I don't, all of a sudden I just disconnect myself from the conversation. My eyes just go somewhere else. I'm not listening anymore. And I got a couple of people starting to say, oh, there's Andre's thinking face. Oh, we've lost Andre because he must be onto something. And now people are starting going and saying, well, what are you thinking now? Versus, oh, what a rude bastard. He's not listening to us. The other thing, too, that Blake really discussed on this is the impact of the environment that we have around us affects our personal execution and processes and success, or like he called it, optimization. And the environment, I noticed, and I agree with him, plays a big role in our behavior. So our surroundings can significantly influence behavior, especially for those with ADHD. So his point is we have to optimize our environment to minimize distraction. Just like me, I've got this little office. I don't have a lot of things in here that can distract me and remove me from my work because all that stuff is outside. I have to physically get up, go through the door. But if I can't see it, it's not there to distract me. And all I'm working on is whatever I need to work on right now is right here. Every individual with ADHD also needs unique strategies. Okay, like for me, choosing specific seating arrangements. So if this is my workspace, my get in my mind to work here, this is work time. And that helps with our transitioning. And remember, ADHD brains have a challenge going from one task to another. So we have to have a transition routine that says, hey, you're going to be doing this now. So when I'm in this area of my house, this is work only. If I'm in this area of the office, it's work only. And I got different areas where I get to read, do certain things. I'm playing my Lego, or if I'm in the workshop, that's to do woodworking. I'm not there to do work. So these different arrangements definitely helps with our ability to transition and create the environment for our success. Now, with the environment, as part of the ADHD structure, is your habits, routines, and your rules. So Blake had a lot of good points here. Like he realized that structured time blocks was really good for focus work for him, and then really enhances your productivity. So for him, it's 90-minute time blocks, sprints as he called them. Head down, and he just focuses and he works down for 90 minutes, then takes a break, rewards himself with something else. For me, depending on the task, I prefer a 4-hour time frame, or if it's really stuff I don't enjoy, I really just do an hour so I can get through and make that pain. A lot of stuff I don't like to do, I make that pain very, very small. And that's environment control in order to protect not environment control to help you control your behaviors, okay? So we have all these nonverbal cues. For a lot of us, for a long time, we have no idea how or what they are. Usually we just criticize and we just push it aside, or really try to change it. So self-awareness, he really talked so we can adapt these nonverbal behaviors and just make sure to understand. Blake wasn't saying to get rid of them. It's just to be about self-cognizant and self-aware of these habits. And what he was recommending is to identify some of these nonverbal habits, record yourself and review yourself during these interactions. And there you can start seeing some of these nonverbal habits that others perceive as negative. Like a lot of these you don't realize you're doing until it's pointed out, or you can see it yourself. And it's all about giving you a chance for self-awareness and improvement. Okay, so why do the video? He's not saying to find your faults and remove them, but it's more about finding the nonverbal cues to reduce the impact of them, and for you to explain them to others to foster better understanding. And this is part of the communication, and in communicating these nonverbal traits to people without the label of ADHD. Like I said earlier, ADHD is a label that explains how our brain functions differently, okay? It can never be used as an excuse, because people, if you start saying, I got ADHD, I got this, I got that, they're going to go to their perceptions, negative biases, and stop listening. But if you start explaining these needs and behaviors in a non-labeling way, it helps other people comprehend the difference, and they will help accommodate your difference. Be forgiving, accepting. Now that they understand, okay, it's not the fact that he doesn't care, that's just the way it is. And I already gave you the example about my working memory is very shoddy. It's very small. So I explain to people that my working memory is bad. Please send me an email so I don't forget it, because if I forget it, then you're not getting served. So the nonverbal traits of ADHD that Blake outlined are part of the reason we developed characters to play in our lives. And we have a need to fit in and be accepted. So this is how our brain is and how it works. These help form a part of our personality. It is us, okay? Learn your nonverbal cues and discover the why. Why, so you can explain it to others and no longer feel ashamed to be you. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for learning with me, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.